Running Sentences presents Against an Angry Ocean. Part 6. A lost ship? Things continue to get stranger aboard this cargo ship headed across the ocean, and things back home continue to unravel. This story was written and narrated by Michael Hunnery. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within the story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, and so on is purely coincidental. Copyright 2025, Michael Hunnery, all rights reserved. Hendrik and his secretary were making their way out of the blue block building, but had stopped for a moment as security looked them over, all to make sure that they hadn't removed any files or something like that. Hendrik didn't mind, but it did delay things for them. "Is there anything else you wish to do today, sir?" "We need to get in contact with our ship, Miss Jewel." "I don't know if that is possible, sir." "No doubt it will be difficult. As reported, there are storms all over the ocean interfering with any signals." "But we need to try?" his secretary asked. "Yes, we do. They need to know a few things now that I know something is wrong." "Well, then our satellite phone might be the best option." "And what other options do we have?" "We could try our radios, but those airwaves do not seem to reach out as far as they once did, as you pointed out, sir." "Try all of the options open to us. Getting in touch with that ship is important." "There is another option we have not yet talked about." "That is?" "If the coordinates are correct, the ship still isn't too far away. We could take a fast helicopter to them." "A nice idea, but it wouldn't work unless the crew are idiots and have opened up the cargo bay. The ship is sealed, remember? We wouldn't be able to get inside." "Yes, but the computer did report a lot of unusual activity going on to us. There may be something going on out there, and you need to check it out yourself." "Don't think I can trust that computer. It was programmed by these fools. Also, we have no way of knowing where the ship actually is, and going through a few storms to get there, it would be a mess to get that way, to even get close, and it isn't worth risking my life." "Understood. I will do what I can to get them to talk to us as soon as possible, Mr. Hendrik." The guards finished up their sweeps and groping of the two, then stepped aside to let them leave. Hendrik did give them a slight glare as they left the building, but said nothing since they weren't worth the effort. Ursula, Sky, Chris, and Kaylee were all gathered around the open box, staring at its contents. There were a few questioning silent looks around one another about what the computer had told them. Could they trust that and to tell them the truth? So far, it felt like a fat no was the only answer that was coming to them. "To me, that looks robotic and like it has weapons attached to it." "A weapon of war from a weapons manufacturer, Ursula? No surprise, but why would these be the first things shipped over?" "Money talks, and since the computer is running everything, I guess the company Blue Block figured it was worth a shot, Sky?" Another furtive glance about the place by all of them brings them no great answer, and with a sigh, Ursula gives up. "Computer, what are we looking at?" Ursula demanded to know. "This is a prototype Mark VII construction bot." "It has weapons, cargo computer." "Well, it may look like weapons, Mr. Sky, but they are in fact tools for work." "Weapons are considered tools of war, aren't they?" "One might believe that, yes, Kaylee. It isn't a whole truth on the matter, but people like to be suspicious of all tools." "And why should we not be suspicious of this thing?" "As far as I'm aware, it only works in construction. Unless you are somehow scared of such equipment, I see no reason to fear it." Kaylee said suspicious of, not afraid of, computer. There is nothing to cause that sort of emotion either, Chris." The whole thing is plain as day, and you should return this box to its container right away. Why would we do that? Captain, if it can pick up a signal, it will activate and then start to do its job, the computer said. What kind of signal? We're in the middle of the ocean and in the middle of storms, so I doubt it could be picked up by anything. Any kind of signal. There are plenty of satellites and radio communications that the company is throwing out there, waiting for a connection to anything out there. You would be at great risk if it woke up. And, if it does connect, and we'll start doing what exactly, cargo computer? As far as I'm aware, Sky, it is construction, so it will work on whatever materials it can and begin working on whatever its commands are. Shouldn't it be waiting for orders to begin such operations? Chris's question made the computer take a second to process the request for information, then beeped back to life. As I have no records of what that information might be and my communication with the major server are currently spotty, I cannot answer your question. Great, we're left with no great solution, Ursula commented. We do have one thing we can do, though, and so we don't risk anything. The captain eventually nods to Sky's comment, and the box is closed and then pushed back inside. The container doors are then slowly shut and locked back in place. Forgive the interruption, but it appears that there is a phone ringing on the bridge. Who is calling us, computer? Captain, the computer said that it was the CEO and owner of the boat. Would you like me to connect you here, or will you go back up to the bridge? No, I will go up to the bridge and deal with it. I'm coming with you. Fine, Sky. You two, get back to the engines and see what you can do about them, please. I fear it won't do much. Or close to nothing until we get to calm waters. We're not near calm waters, are we? No, it might not do much, Chris. We're not near calm waters, Kaylee, as far as I can tell. Just do what you can, where you can. There were nods all around as Sky and Ursula clambered as quickly as they could back up the containers to the walkway. No easy task, but they accomplished it in a fair amount of time. The two ran onto the bridge and looked over the space. It was calm and quiet up here, and even the waves had calmed down a bit, though they were still rolling about. Also quite a lot of rain coming down along with wind whistling by the windows. It, though, didn't feel like the ship was suddenly about to turn over on its side on them. Computer, there is a call coming for the ship? Yes, Rio Glorious Lido. Well, his secretary, I believe, is the one putting in the call for him. Miss Captain? Please connect us so that we can talk to them. Please wait a moment or two, Sky. I will announce when you are connected. Ursula turned quickly to Sky. Let me do the talking, please. You don't trust me? I feel like I can better express myself if I don't have potentially conflicting information coming from you. Sky winced at that, but nodded. Fine, fine. There's a bit of crackle and static that came over the speaker system. You are now connected to land and ship. Am I connected? Yes, you are connected to our ship, Jewel. The CEO wanted to talk to us about something. Is there a problem? There was a hiss of static that took over for a minute. Great. How are things aboard the ship? Great and fine. Why? Ursula asked. The computer, as you are well aware, Captain, has been reporting back to us, but spottily. We are still able to get some updates, and we wanted further updates. Yes, we are well aware. Did it report something that you didn't like? We are also expecting your reports. With a tight smile and almost grinding her teeth, Ursula does her best to keep her temper in control. You do understand that it is hard to communicate on these seas, and that we've been in storms almost constantly, right? It's hard to get these messages through on our end. The computer seems to do it, but we aren't able to. Completely understood, Captain. We still expect you to try in case the signal can reach us in our time of need. Sorry to interrupt. You said you had something to tell us? Surely you didn't call us just to reprimand us for not communicating as much as you wanted, Miss Jewel? Mr. Sky, it is good that you are here as well. We do have much to talk about, that is correct. But I wasn't sure if it was just Ursula. Ursula then glares towards Sky for a second, displeased he isn't following her orders. Yes, we would love to hear what you have to say, Jewel. First, is the ship running well? Yes and no. Storms are battering things, making it difficult to get anywhere slowly or quickly, Sky offered. And the computer has made running the ship difficult since it controls everything. But we are moving. I see, Captain, and Sky. And the cargo, how is that holding up? It is safe and sound. We just checked on it. Heavy static crossed the line, but the secretary's voice comes across very clear a second later. Please tell me you did not personally check on the cargo? The windows built into the hallway allow us to check in on things. Remember, we constantly check to see that nothing has moved. Exactly as Sky has said. Well, that's good to hear. It would be bad to open up those boxes. Why, Miss Secretary? Ursula asked. My name is Jewel. Please address me by that, and Mr. Hendrick has said that we cannot be sure of the cargo, since it is so sensitive, and it is, well, it's best not to look into things like that. Another glance is shared between Ursula and Sky, who both raise eyebrows at it. You're willing to ship it across the ocean, though, but you don't trust it? It is part of our contract that we signed, Mr. Sky. If there was space, then certain cargo must be included. But you don't know what's the exact manifest for it? Another hiss of static took over the system that had allowed them to communicate. Outside, everything had calmed down threefold, so that no wind, waves, or rain were racking the area, but the dark, ominous clouds seemed to be hanging around, but even those looked like they broke somewhat up ahead. What was that thing you're starting to get a bit sketchy on our end? You're breaking up. What was it you were saying? I asked if you knew what was in the cargo bay of your own ship. It seems like you should know such things, but I've been wrong before. Captain, we know the basics of the company that hired out the space, but we were not told specifics of what that would entail. Contracts are all made on such stipulations. And it would be terrible if we saw anything remotely about what's in those containers? Why do you ask, Sky? Hypothetically, Miss Jewel, since nothing has happened, but if one of those locks came undone and the doors swung open, it would be bad, right? Yes. Has that happened? No, Miss Secretary Jewel, and even if it has, I would point out that it's hard for us to get to the cargo bay. We weren't given directions, and it is sealed off from us. As Ursula says, we have no way to get there, and have seen nothing bad. Good. Keep it that way, and have any other problems come up for you. The computer is still giving us trouble. Learn to deal with it, Captain, and get across the ocean as fast as you can. There was a leak somewhere in the engine room, as best as Chris and Kaylee could tell. Their feet were sloshing about in an inch or so deep water that had covered the floor of the room. Their search so far had turned up no solution as to where this leak was hiding, but thankfully it didn't seem to be getting any worse. Do you find anything over there, Kaylee? Nothing that I can see. I'll report it to the bridge that we have a leak there. He nodded to her as she moved towards the tablet that would allow communications to the bridge. However, she only got a few steps before the engines suddenly sparked to life. Its roar was loud and took a second for them to grab ear protection to stop it from being too much for them. Jeez, things aren't usually this loud, are they? They told us that it would be a quiet running engine, and it was, so I don't know what's happening. Something is definitely wrong with them, then. I'll try and get it to shut back down. Why did it even start up? Kaylee asked aloud. Chris looked over at the panels in front of him to see if they gave any indication of what was going on. They didn't show any information on why the engines had suddenly restarted, so he shrugged to his co-worker. Maybe it starts if the water is calm enough? Is it calm? She asked Chris. I haven't really felt any waves pushing about the ship, and it's been quiet, so maybe, Kaylee? I'm going to head out to the hallway and communicate up to the bridge that way. But things are funky. I don't know that I trust anything here, but maybe everything is good. She managed to get out the door without anything further going on, leaving Chris alone. He studied the screens for a moment more. Computer? Yes, Mr. Chris. Why did the engines restart? It, like much of the ship, was put on an automated process should anything happen. So all the ship's sails work automatically when things are in the right moment? It would appear that way, yes, Chris. Well then, turn off the engines. I cannot complete that task. Because you have overriding orders? Exactly, Chris. I have only one set of orders that I'm allowed to follow. Listening to your orders is absolutely fine, but they are low on the totem pole of things to do. What would it take to get them higher up? I have no idea, sir. The doorway opened again as Kaylee poked her head in. The captain wants you and me on the bridge at once. I don't know if we can trust leaving the engine alone with this computer. Don't worry about me, Chris. I can fully handle taking care of every part of this ship. You're just along for the ride. Remember? Kaylee was also not too eager to leave the engines alone with the computer, but the computer shooed them away, and now they were standing in the bridge of the ship. It was crowded with the four of them up there, but the bright sunlight coming in from the windows along the calm seas was a nice, very welcomed change. What's this all about? Kaylee asked. I need to know how things in the engine room are going, you two, Ursula requested to know. They're running, but we don't have control over them, right, Kaylee? Yeah, Kaylee reported that it started up on its own, Sky interjected. Yeah, computer said most of the ship was automated except for the sails, or I don't even remember, Chris replied. Why, none of this makes any sense. I know, it's weird, Kaylee, but you heard it just like I did. As the captain of the ship, we will deal with that in a moment. There was a water leak, and do you need anything to help keep the engines going and running? Everything is running itself, so I don't think there is anything we can do, Captain. As for the leak, no idea. It might be from the engine, now, Kaylee said as she threw her hands up in frustration. Now, there is our big problem. What would that be, Sky? The second in command waves his arms out towards the windows, looking out onto the ocean in front of them. It was clear, calm, and quiet out there. There should be some storms out there. It's bad that there isn't, Captain? It's good, Kaylee, but it also means that we can't trust our systems one bit. They're reporting storms all over the place. We down in the engine room already don't trust this computer that runs the ship, Chris announced as firmly as he could. The system is beamed to us by computer satellites, and it has nothing to do with the computers running the ship, so the government's data is wrong, Sky said. We have some smooth sailing ahead if the computer doesn't begin to direct us away from all of this. So I just wanted to touch in with everybody and make sure that everyone gets some rest. Then we can tackle more issues that seem to be plaguing us in this boat and the computer. Like if we're worried about the cargo coming to life or staying asleep? Yes to that, Sky. More so, we have to know what problems the boat has. Without that knowledge, we're just sailing off to whatever. Chris nodded along, as did Kaylee, but Sky seemed distracted, looking out the window. Something wrong, Sky? Chris asked. Kaylee glanced towards where Sky was looking. Yeah, so it was clear, but now it looks like there's a lot of fog over there, but all around us is clear at the moment, and even above the fog is pretty clear day. That's really weird. Maybe that's the storm the weather service found, Kaylee offered. That would be nice, but I somehow doubt that they'd consider fog to be a cause for an alert out here. Well, fog is pretty bad on land, Captain. Maybe out in the ocean it's the same? Chris, as nice a thought as that is, they're worried about people running into one another. No boats wander out this far into the ocean anymore, Sky said. Hey, maybe it's the triangle, Kaylee offered excitedly. The three looked at Kaylee as she said this, trying not to look surprised or worried by her comment. None of them managed to hold back the fear creeping up them now, and changing their faces to not be happy at that comment. I hope you don't mean that old sea tale about the place where ships and people disappear into, Kaylee. Yes, but it isn't real, and we would have heard about it more if it were true. I was just throwing it out there. Well, let's not do that anymore. Bad-sounding things on a ship we have no control over is an unpleasant thought to deal with. Ursula said this towards Kaylee, nodded in return. Not that we can deal with it, Captain, Chris replied, and to which Sky nodded and added. Back to the problem of that fog, though. If we enter it, our sense of direction will surely get lost. Sky, do you have any sense of direction of where we're going now, without looking at the screens telling us? Towards the middle of the ocean, but on a southerly direction at last check of our compass. Sky pointing towards one of the few things on the ship that wasn't automated. A compass set amongst the gear, merrily pointing in that direction that they were going. And we trust that? Kind of got to, don't we, Chris? Kaylee said. Yes, we trust it. We're doing all we can to keep the ship afloat. Kaylee, it's your shift in the engine room, right? She turned, surprised by Ursula's question, and had to shrug since she wasn't really sure anymore. Everything has been thrown through a loop since the engine turned off, and, well, even before that, everything was weird. Yeah, we both took a rest and then went back to trying to tackle the engine to turn it back on and get rid of that leak and everything else going on. I guess it's up to you, Captain, to decide who goes. Fine. Then Kaylee, it's your shift, and Sky, it is your shift as well, as long as you're recovered from that incident. Incident? Chris asked, wanting an explanation. I fell asleep and was stabbed by a needle or something like that. Well, I was the only person on the bridge. I think it was the computer, if I have to blame somebody. I deny all accusations pointed towards me, thank you, Sky. As you can see, the computer claims it's innocent, so we have no leads. Anyway, I'm fine for now, and we'll take this shift. My only question is, do you want me to try and get the computer to steer away from the now approaching fog and keep towards the clear skies, or what are we doing? Well, we can't exactly go against the computer now that it has the engine running, and it seemed like it was still mostly in control even when it was off. Yes, as Kaylee points out, just best to get to work and see what you can do. Plot a course and figure out if you're following our original ascent path or whether the ship's creating a new path and whatever it's going to do. That's your job, okay, Sky? Fine by me, Captain. Anything else, or shall we all get back to what we were supposed to be doing? Everyone looks to one another, but no one speaks up. It takes a moment, but eventually they begin to depart to set off to what they wanted to do. Instead of heading back to her room, Ursula wound up walking over to the hallway with the windows to the cargo bay. She stared at the boxes and the cargo containers, making sure nothing was happening inside. She was fighting the sinking feeling that something might happen because of her actions in ordering the crew to do stuff. But it was all quiet. Is there a problem, Captain? Is the cargo secured, computer? According to the cargo computer, everything is okay and good. That isn't very reassuring to hear. I would like something a little more solid than that. We're not on solid ground with one another, by the way, computer. It is the best I can do. Are you planning to close that door to the cargo bay? I was not planning on it, no, computer. Well, maybe you should, just to be sure that nothing bad can happen. Are you saying that bad things are going to happen in the cargo room, computer? No, Captain. I want you to be safe and feel so, and that would be the best way to make sure that your safety is ensured. After all, it is your worry that the tool machines will come to life. It was not my fear until the cargo computer told me about them waking up. Now it is a problem I have to deal with. By closing the door, Captain. No, the door remains open, since we don't know if and when we will need access to the top deck again. It is our only way up there. If I said that there might be a very good chance of one of those tools waking up and breaking out of the container, what would be your response, Captain? Ursula did her best not to roll her eyes, but then did so anyway. That you're saying a lot of things to try and get me to do something. I won't do it unless you give me a good reason. Are you saying that the tools coming out and deciding to kill you in your sleep isn't frightening and a good reason? The tools that are going to kill us now? That isn't what the cargo computer said. They might. Again, you're saying whatever you can to get me to close that door. I won't do it. Fine, Captain. Have your way. I will. This is my boat to command, and we need a safe route, or at least a somewhat safe route, not circuitous route, to get outside onto the main deck. There are other ways out, the computer protested. But you will only tell me if I close the door, am I correct? Yes. She shook her head no and moved off down the hallway. Chris had attempted to get some sleep, which didn't happen for him. He laid out on his bed for a while, waiting for it to come to him. When it didn't, he rose and went over to his computer to see if it would connect to the internet and show if he had any messages. Come on, internet, I'm rooting for you so that I won't be bored. Is there a connection problem, Chris? No, room computer, I don't know, I'm just waiting to see. I can help hurry things up and check to see that you have a connection. He looked up towards the ceiling, since that is mostly where he suspected the computerized voice was coming from. Right, and what would be the cost of that? There is a door that needs to be closed, sir. To the cargo bay? Chris questioned. Yes, that is the one exactly. It needs to be closed for safety reasons. I don't think so, computer. I just don't believe you. It's a great hazard that could cause problems for us. The captain will deal with it then. Talk to her. She is not listening to us anymore. The all-way computer attempted to convince her, but it did not go well. That spot is a hazard, and it is hazardous not to listen to our commands. It will put you in danger. Probably, computer, but you also put us in danger by messing with the engine and refusing to help us. My fellow computers, Mr. Chris, have been a great help, and it wasn't me who did it to the engines. Okay, who was it then? Who do you think? There's only one right answer, and if it isn't the computers. Chris looked up with a glare towards the ceiling, trying to figure out where this conversation was going. Why would Kaylee, who I assume you mean, mess with the engines when it is our main mode of getting across the ocean? It doesn't make any sense for the crew to mess things up. Well, I've heard rumors about a ship coming to meet us and to take all of the cargo, the computer retorted. Where did you hear this? From where did you hear this? I am hooked up to communication with the main hub of my creator. I hear all sorts of stuff. Chris swung about in his chair, leaning back to full-on stare at the ceiling. Was the computer this dumb? Did it really just believe whatever information it came across? You know, that actually makes you suspicious, right? What do you mean? How, Chris? Your creator tells you information to you, which you then set in motion. If we're meeting with another boat out here, why go to the humans when the computer running things in the first place can get the job done? That makes no sense, Chris. Why would my company transfer its own goods to another ship? It only works if it is one of you doing it. See? Flawless logic, Chris. Yet none of us have control of the ship to direct it to another boat, so how would we do that? There was no response from the ship's computer, so he turned back to his screen. There was a blinking light that said he had a message, but they looked to be from people he owed money to. They're not exactly the types of people he wanted to be dealing with, at least not right now. And anyway, he felt the yawn coming on, followed by the feeling that getting some sleep might now actually be possible. Hendrik sat heavily down on his comfy chair in his executive office. A heavy feeling of the world crumbling around him haunted him for the last few hours of research and finding out what he could. His secretary hadn't reported in on the day, and it was approaching its end, which meant things might have to wait for tomorrow. As he was thinking this, though, the door opened and his secretary strolled right on in. "Sir?" "I didn't expect to see you again today, Jewel." "I am at your beck and call during work hours, and, well, it's still work hours." "They're almost over. You could have gone home, I wouldn't have complained. What can I do for you, though?" "I did manage to talk to the ship." He felt his back stiffen and the eyebrows rose up in surprise at this news. The question, though, that instantly came to him was asking if this was good or bad news that was about to greet him. "And what happened?" "Things do not appear to be going well, sir. The crew seem to have it in their minds that the computer is in control of the ship. At least, that is the impression I got from talking to them, and they don't seem happy about this." "The more important problem is that cargo." "Yes, they were a bit weird about that." "How so, Jewel?" "I got a feeling that they went and looked at the cargo." Nodding along, Hendrik wasn't terribly surprised by this news. Everyone seemed to be doing whatever they wanted, and his crew would certainly be no different. It was, though, frustrating and another problem to potentially deal with. "Okay, so we'll deal with that if it becomes a problem. Not much we can do from here, is there?" "I did tell them that we could potentially get to them by helicopter. Don't know if the message got across, but I did say it." "There's no way you or I are flying out into those storms to get on that ship." "I figured as much, but I felt like the right thing to do to try and scare them into cooperating." "Did it actually work?" She shook her head no. "Well, I'll keep an eye on things. Are they at least headed across the ocean?" "There was some suffered engine issues, but are now sailing at top speed, that they can tell. Our satellite imagery shows moving, but currently are covered by heavy storms." "So nothing good has happened. That should have been expected. I do worry, though." "About the cargo or the computer aboard the ship?" "Both, unfortunately." He sighed and sat back in his chair so that he was lolling his head back to look at the ceiling. So much was going on that he had no control over when usually he had a say in just about everything. "Neither of those things we can control, Mr. Hendrik, and I shall point out that we're not supposed to know what is in the cargo hold." "Well, Black Blue are fools if they think we don't know about it. Machines of war are always declared in cargo, even unofficially. I guess that will be all that you can do for me tonight. Have a good night." Jewel, his secretary, offered a small bow and began backing away. He watched this for a moment as he twirled about in his chair and made it go around in a circle. Mostly he was doing this because it was something to do, and well, when a chair spins, sometimes it's good to just go for a spin. What to do about any of this? There really is, I guess, only one thing I can do. Prepare for the onslaught of questions from the government about how things went wrong. He nodded to himself and kept spinning about in his chair. End of part 6 of Against an Angry Ocean. Thank you for listening.